the United Nations raises major concerns over Zambia refusing Zimbabwe opposition politician Tendai Biti's request for political asylum. Youth education, employment, and empowerment are key items on the agenda at Voice of America's International Young Leaders Town Hall Forum. And highlighting health benefits for infants and moms during World Breastfeeding Week. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening, I'm Esther Gidu at Info Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. Zambia is being heavily criticized by the United Nations for rejecting Zimbabwe opposition politician Tendai Biti's request for asylum on Wednesday. In a statement released on Thursday, the UN Refugee Agency said it is gravely concerned that a senior Zimbabwean politician was refused asylum and sent back to his own country, which would be a serious violation of international law. Biti's lawyer, Gilbert Piri, says Biti was handed over to Zimbabwean police Thursday, ignoring a court order to halt his deportation. Biti is among 9 members of the Movement for Democratic Change Alliance, accused of inciting violence following last week's presidential election, which the MDC Alliance claims was rigged in favor of President Emmerson Mnangagwa. The MDC Alliance is challenging the official election results, saying that its candidate Nelson Chamisa won 56% of the vote. For more insight on Zimbabwe politics, I'm joined by VOA Zimbabwe reporter Jonga Kademiri. Jonga, welcome again to Africa 54.
Thank you, Esther.
Now, do we know of what the court charges were for Tendai Biti?
What we have heard so far, Esther, is that Tendai Biti is charged with 2 cases, one inciting violence and the second one releasing election results unofficially. And they say ZEC is the only body that should announce results, not any other person.
Is he still in custody or was he released on bail?
Yes, when we came here on air, there were reports that he was granted $5,000 bail and some stringent conditions like surrender his passport and title deeds to the court, report twice to the police, twice a day to the police, and continue residing at his given address, also not to interfere with witnesses and not to address political rallies or any press conference.
Wow, something that we haven't seen in Zimbabwe in a long, long time. But you just returned from Zimbabwe, and is there general fear among the opposition politicians or even people in general of being arrested or even worse?
That's true. That's one reason why Tendai Biti tried to flee to Zambia, because opposition members, there are reports that they are being visited at night at their homes and any given address by state security agents. And so there's fear among people and even general populace. They cannot discuss things openly as they used to do after the November coup. Things just took a turn after the elections yesterday.
Wow, so in this case, you'll be following up on what's going on with Tendai Biti, perhaps maybe even get an interview with him?
We're trying to. As soon as he's released, then we'll talk to him.
Jonga, thank you very much for talking to us.
You're welcome, Esther. Thank you.
Jonga Kandemiri is a reporter with VOA Zimbabwe Service. Around the world, millions of young people are undereducated, underemployed, and living in poverty. The social and economic issues they face, from the lack of jobs to income inequality to political instability, were the focus of VOA's Thinking Forward town hall this week, which featured comments from the next generation of youth leaders. Here's VOA's Elizabeth Chernev.
At the museum in Washington, D.C., youth leaders and entrepreneurs gathered to discuss the challenges facing young people around the world. Joining the conversation from New York was the grandson of former South African President Nelson Mandela.
Not only is there youth unemployment, but there are also unemployable youth because they don't have the necessary skills in order to find jobs. So this is why we work through our foundation in order to give young people skills in technology and entrepreneurship.
The latest data from the UN shows more than half of the world's population is younger than 30 years old. but more than 66 million of them are unemployed. Creating job opportunities means changing attitudes and preconceptions about working men and women, says entrepreneur Nasreen Ali Mohammed.
We did have cases where we're trying to support a woman to start her business. She had the skills, she had the ambition, but her husband would not allow that. So, I mean, this is a dialogue it's a domestic dialogue.
Maria Torpakai, Pakistan's first female squash player, believes sports can help young people to see their full potential.
I would say that extremism and terrorism is something that I strongly believe can be tackled by sports. Mm-hmm. And education is definitely very important. You can't just think of only education, but I think sports and education go along well.
Despite the obstacles they face, Afghanistan's former Deputy Minister of Commerce, Mozammil Shinwari, expressed optimism about the future.
I'm quite hopeful that majority of the next Afghan parliament will be the younger generation, that they will be below 35 years of age.
But that future will depend on young people stepping up and taking initiative, says Tunisian social activist Ayman Abderrahman.
Solutions and better situations do not fall from the skies. We have to fight for them.
But creating opportunities for young people requires the combined efforts of both older and younger generations, says Kurdish-American activist Rudan Balay.
In order to actually hear your voice at the table, the older politicians need to provide a seat for young people at the table, and that's not what they're doing. So, like we kind of talked about earlier, young people need to take it into their own hands.
The discussion comes just ahead of International Youth Day, which aims to draw attention to the cultural and political issues facing the world's young people. Elizabeth Cherneff, VOA News, Washington.
Democratic Republic of Congo President Joseph Kabila says he will not seek re-election in December and will support former Interior Minister Emmanuel Ramazani Shadary in the upcoming presidential poll. The announcement of Kabila's support for Ramazani's candidacy ends years of speculation about whether the two-term president would seek a third term despite a constitutional two-term limit.
The people need reconstruction. They need social care. That is what we are going to do, and we are open to everyone.
Candidates had until Wednesday afternoon to officially enter the presidential race, which is set for December 23rd. Congo has never had a peaceful transition of power since it gained independence in 1960 from European colonial powers. In East Africa, South Sudanese President Salva Kiir is granting a general amnesty to rebels involved in the country's civil war, including opposition leader and his former deputy Riek Machar. The amnesty order was read out on state-run television late Wednesday, 3 days after Kiir, Machar, and the heads of other groups signed a ceasefire and power-sharing agreement in the Sudanese capital, Khartoum. A political dispute between Kiir and Machar spiraled in 2013 into a war that has killed tens of thousands, forced 25% of the population to flee their homes, and wrecked countries' oil-dependent economy. Machar's group, the amnesty means that he can, the amnesty means Machar can only come to Juba after the pre-interim period when the unified forces are deployed in Juba and across South Sudan. Meanwhile, in capital Juba, South Sudanese nationals welcomed the signing of the revitalized power-sharing pact by warring parties. They say the deal will end more than 4 years of strife in the country. Thousands of Juba residents seized the occasion and took to the streets after the peace deal was inked in Khartoum on Sunday. They also carried the flag of South Sudan as they sang and danced along. One South Sudanese resident, Batuti Zinoriko, says he was overjoyed.
I'm really very happy for the day of today. Actually, I feel it, and I wish all people who escaped the war, they're feeling it the same, because the peace has come.
The agreement outlines guidelines on power sharing and governance, including settling boundary disputes, which will be guided by a boundary commission. It also provides an avenue for the people of South Sudan to participate in a referendum, if need be, to settle those disputes. The Spanish charity rescue boat Open Arms on Thursday rescued 87 migrants and their crew off the coast of Libya taking them to the southern port city of Algeciras. Those rescued included 84 from Sudan, 1 Syrian, 1 Egyptian, and a Gambian, as well as 12 children. The 87 people were retrieved from an inflatable raft which was floating with a broken motor on the open sea on August 2nd. The charity Proactiva Open Arms operates in the Mediterranean Sea between Libya and southern Europe. Their mission is aimed at aiding migrants who have found themselves in trouble during an attempt to cross the sea from northern Africa. The charity says the migrants rescued have expressed fear of being returned to Libya, adding they would rather die than go back to Libya, where they could face imprisonment and torture. Now, places of worship such as churches, temples, and synagogues are built by design to reflect the perfection of the God or gods of people worship. They often strive to depict beauty through paintings, colored glass, or by the images that portray divine status and stories from their holy books. But beautifying mosques presents a different challenge, since images are forbidden in Islam. Beauty is often depicted in the ornate calligraphy used to display passages from the Quran. VOA's Rebaz Majid spent a day with a Kurdish calligrapher who designs mosque interiors in Iraq. Bezan Habdad narrates.
In the digital age, when mosque interiors are often designed by a computer program, printed, and then posted onto blank walls, Nahro Kadir is bringing back the fine art of calligraphy. The Iraqi Kurd spends hours practicing his brushstrokes and painting ornate texts and literature by hand.
The true value and meaning of art is doing it by hands, because it is the outcome of humans' perception and consciousness, but the stickers are from a machine that gets orders and applies it. Using a machine, it can be done in a few hours, but it does not last long, while what I do lives until this building exists.
Kadir has been practicing Arabic calligraphy for 22 years. He's passionate about his art.
Art is craziness. Craziness meaning that if someone does not have enough capacity and energy, they cannot continue doing it. The work that I do needs lots of passion and determination, which comes from my love of the art.
In the absence of painted images, calligraphy has become an integral aspect of Islamic art and history.
Art brings peace to the soul, and calligraphy serves that purpose. When you come to God's home, you come to worship, but you are also here to find tranquility, and art can do that. Islam as a religion emphasizes art's importance.
Ancient calligraphic art stands out because of its sacred and meticulous attention to detail. And in our fast-paced assembly line world, artists like Nahro Kadir are doing their best to keep it alive, one brushstroke at a time. For Rebaz Majid in Suleymania, this is Bejan Hamdard, VOA News.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. Still ahead on Africa 54, promoting the health benefits of breastfeeding. But first, a look at Thursday's headlines.
Severe sufferings on our people.
And it's time now for our health report. And joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lenore Mudu to tell us about World Breastfeeding Week. Lenore?
That's right, Esther. This week marks World Breastfeeding Week, a worldwide celebration to encourage breastfeeding and improve the health of babies around the world. This year's theme is Breastfeeding, Foundation of Life. Organizers say their objectives include informing people about the links between good nutrition, food security, poverty reduction, and breastfeeding. The World Health Organization says breastfeeding is the normal way of providing young infants with the nutrients they need for healthy growth and development. It improves the health, well-being, and survival of women and children around the world. The WHO says virtually all mothers can breastfeed, provided they have accurate information, the support of their family, the healthcare system, and society at large. Now, Congolese officials and the World Health Organization are vaccinating health workers against the deadly Ebola virus to try to halt an outbreak in Congo's volatile eastern region. Health workers have administered the vaccine in the eastern DRC village of Mangina, where the epidemic was declared. The health ministry says so far 43 people are believed to have been infected in the North Kivu and Ituri provinces, including 36 who have died. More than 45 have contacted the contact of those, more than 900 rather, contacts of those infected have been identified for monitoring. The experimental Ebola vaccine being used is manufactured by Merck and proved successful during its first wide-scale usage against the previous outbreak in Equateur province. The World Health Organization says analysis of genetic sequencing showed it was a separate outbreak from the one that ended less than 2 weeks ago after killing 33 people.
It's true that you want us to carry out mass vaccinations of the whole population, but the scientific recommendations are that this is not the way we will stop the epidemic. So if we want to stop the epidemic, we must respect the rules and the codes that have been established. The codes in place are we must respect the pillars, hygiene, dignified burial, and vaccination. And when we start vaccinations, to go from circle to circle.
First of all, we ask the population not to panic. That's the worst thing to do. When people do not panic, they are able to follow recommendations more effectively. In addition, we ask people to wash their hands as often as possible with soap. Chlorine is even better to wash their hands, but if they do not have access to chlorine, they should use soap. We ask for more hand-washing stations. Furthermore, people should stop shaking their hands. Following these 3 guidelines can help with prevention. On the other hand, we ask that if a family member has a fever, bring them to the hospital to be properly diagnosed. People should avoid home diagnosis. The reality is Ebola is here and must be stopped.
Health officials say a total of over 3,200 doses of the RVSV-Zibov Ebola vaccine are currently available in the country. Supplementary doses have not yet been requested. Now, the Young African Leadership Initiative concluded recently after 6 weeks with about 700 Mandela Washington Fellows. 100 of them have been selected after training to participate in professional development experience internships here in the United States. One of them is Samuel Faya Johnson, a capacity building officer in the Governance and Decentralization Unit with Liberia's Ministry of Health. Samuel joins us live via Skype from Phoenix, Arizona, where he is interning. Samuel, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you very much again, Lena. Thank you.
So you are from Liberia, and the country experienced an Ebola outbreak a couple of years ago. Tell us how the health system is faring now after the outbreak.
Well, 4 years on, Liberia health system is moving forward. Liberia health system has improved. Ebola did expose the vulnerabilities of our system, so we are now strengthening our system in terms of emergency preparedness and surveillance. And we are doing well as a country, we are doing well as a system. And in terms of leadership, we've now mapping and also aligning resources to priorities. And we think we are kind of prepared for emergencies. I said in my previous interview that the advent of meningitis in one of our counties showed to the world that our surveillance system through the National Public Health Institute of Liberia with support from the Center for Disease Control, CDC, is up to the task.
Okay. Now tell us about some of the priorities as you talk about strengthening the healthcare system in terms of preparedness. Quickly tell us one or two priority areas.
One basic priority area is the supply of essential medical supplies for the health system.
Okay.
That is one particular area that needs focus, because in as much as the system is being strengthened, once materials or medical supplies are not provided, it impedes all efforts to get jobs across to those in need.
Okay. Now, how is the Mandela Fellowship helping you to improve your skills in terms of helping your country's healthcare system?
A little over 50 Liberians have benefited from the Mandela Washington Fellowship. And these Liberians are from either the private sector or the public sector. And for me, more specifically, the Mandela Washington Fellowship is greatly helping to shape my own thoughts about how I go about doing my work in my country, where I'm currently interning and being exposed to rural sector decentralization. Like I said, I work as a capacity building officer in the governance and decentralization unit.
Yes.
So I'm being exposed and getting access to what's happening in Phoenix, Arizona here, and what I can learn from that. From the office level, I'm also strengthening my ability or skills concerning health policy analysis. So it is an opportunity that is really helping me to move forward. And I know with the knowledge and best practices I'm acquiring, I will continuously impact my health system.
Okay, Samuel, we have to leave it there, unfortunately. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Lennon.
And that was Samuel Faya Johnson. He is a capacity building officer with the Liberian Ministry of Health. He is also a Mandela Washington Fellow. And that's our health report for today. So stay in touch for more. Find me on Twitter @LenorMoudou. Back to you, Esther.
And thank you, Lino, for joining us today. Be sure to watch for Lenore Moudou every Tuesday and Thursday for the latest health news in Africa, right here on Africa 54. Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. Could a prosthetic hand ever feel sensations? Johns Hopkins University graduate student Luke Osborne says yes. He has developed an electronic skin that can help amputees to feel pressure and even pain again. Made from fabric and rubber embedded with conductive receptors, the skin wraps around prosthetic hands, sending electrical impulses created by pressure to existing nerves at the end of an amputated limb. Nerves that lead to the brain, meaning a blunt object can be held onto while a pointed object elicits a feeling of pain as well as a reflex to drop the object. And finally, it's another first for SpaceX, the private space company founded by South African-born billionaire Elon Musk has checked off another reusability milestone, reflying the latest version of its Falcon 9 rocket for the first time ever. The rocket's first stage returned to Earth, landing on the Of Course I Still Love You drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. The second stage stayed in orbit and deployed a communications satellite that will provide service to Indonesia and other areas of South and Southeast Asia. And that's what's trending today. Now, refugees who flee war, violence, and persecution in their homelands often can't carry much of their material possessions. Nevertheless, they bring their talent and skills to their new countries. VOA's June Sow met some refugee artists whose creative spirits have been left unchanged despite their troubling journeys. Mary Alice Salinas narrates her report.
Ahmed Al-Karki works in maintenance at an apartment complex in Riverdale, Maryland. But at night and on weekends, he's in front of a canvas set up in the living room of his small apartment.
Painting for me like music. Each painting, different music. I just tell myself, let me dance with color and canvas.
Al-Karki graduated from the University of Baghdad's College of Fine Art. He was a well-known artist in Iraq until violence forced him to flee to Syria in 2006. But war came to him there, too. He was uprooted once again and relocated 3 years later in Riverdale with his wife and 2 children. He says his work has changed since then.
In my country, we don't have a lot of color there, just gray and brown. Here I saw 4 seasons clear. I saw many color. This reason to change my art, and I need to add more color to my painting.
Al-Karki is one of 6 refugee artists whose works are spotlighted at a museum exhibit in Sandy Spring, Maryland. The artists are from Iraq, Ethiopia, and Somalia.
There's so much talk in the news now about refugees and how many people we should let into the country and what are they contributing. And I think this exhibit shows that there's individuals behind the word refugees, and they have all sorts of talents that maybe we're not hearing about from the news.
Many of the displayed works depict the refugee artists' dreams, journeys, and memories of their homelands, as well as the changes arising from their new lives.
My hometown is Wallo. There is a marketplace once in a week. People meet there for market, not only buying or selling, just meet together. So many purposes.
This painting, landscape from my country, I want to show American good thing about my country, this beautiful landscape, not the war or different thing.
Some of Al-Karki's work, like this one called Colorful Horses, reflects refugees' lives in the U.S.
This horse, like refugee, some they come from Europe, some from Africa, some come from Middle East, and they coming here and they work together, live together, do too many things together, and then after like 10, 20 years, everybody say, I'm American, and everybody he try to do something good for this country.
Al-Karki says creating art.
Well, that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website. Good night from Washington.
Welcome to English in a Minute. So, you know what happy is, and medium comes between small and large.
To find a happy medium.
So, is this idiom about feeling kind of happy?
How is it going with your neighbor? Is he still complaining about your playing the trombone at night?
He was, but it's fine now.
How did you guys work it